I'm just filming this really quick while I'm in the library and I have access to, the big whiteboards. This is just sort of my recommendations for people who have watched The Lion in Winter. This is usually my starting spot because I think if you haven't watched a lot of old movies and maybe you have a lot of stereotypes and preconceptions of what it entails, I think it has something to appeal to everyone, and it can kind of break some of those stereotypes. Now, if you're done watching that, these are just some suggestions that I personally think is good. There's, of course, the 2003 movie. It's not really my taste to make some artistic choices I don't really like, but a lot of people whose tastes I really respect like it a lot. So, and I think it's free on YouTube, so anyone can watch it. Wikipedia is always fun. It's always good to go down, and see facts about interesting figures and characters. Also, like it, you learn a lot about the background of production as well. But if you want to dive deeper, there's always the play, which is also available on Internet Archive by James Goldman. It came out a couple of years before the movie, and it has a lot of elements that aren't really in the movie. John's character is a lot more fleshed out, and there are just lots of little lines that work maybe more in a theater setting than in a film setting. And if you want to sort of zoom out from that, we have Beckett, 1964, also starring Peter O'Toole, and it sort of functions sort of like a prequel, but also not, because it was written by a completely different playwright. It's not as historically accurate, and it's kind of its own work. I have my own opinions on it, but I think it's worth checking out, especially if you really like homoerotic sort of explorations from the 60s, which kind of ends up being in there. The play, I do like the play. It has a lot of really good writing. And if you're interested in plays, the LA Theater Works has, it's free on Hoopla and on Gumroad. So I would, and well, $5 on Gumroad, I believe last time I checked, but I think it's pretty affordable, and it's really good production, and the language is really good for those of you who really like that literary playwright sort of styles. Now, if you want to go more in depth, first of all, you have to go, do you know French? Yes or no? So if you do know a little French, there are some fun things you can check out. There's the Confessions de l'Histoire, and for the Second and Third Crusade on YouTube. They're very silly and funny, but more like edutainment style. I think they're pretty fun. I think one of them has subtitles, but one of them doesn't, so it might make it a little difficult. But I think it's a fun little introduction with lots of fun facts about sort of the befores and afters of the, especially the Plantagenet and Capuchin interactions. There's also Secrets de l'Histoire. There's one on Eleanor of Aquitaine. It's pretty funny. It's has factual and stuff, but also they have kind of like the worst reenactor outfits ever that I find very funny. And they also like reuses footage from Lion in Winter 2003, and also from another documentary. If you just want to stick with the English-speaking stuff, there's the Dan Jones Britain's Bloodiest Dynasty series on YouTube, which is very fun. It's very sensational the way it kind of simplifies a lot of dynamics in order to tell a more exciting story, and I think it's worth watching. It's about an hour, and it kind of, if you want to get a really good, just simple overview over the events that happened, it's pretty good. However, if you want to go more in depth, there are some podcasts. I hear that they're also a little bit more on the sensational side, but I haven't listened to them, but I know that they do exist, ones that are specifically about Plantagenet-related subjects. Now for books, if we're going with a pop history, you can't really go wrong with Dan Jones's Plantagenet's books. It's a little bit more detailed than the documentary, and it's a little less sensational. It actually just goes over a very good, concise timeline of the characters and the context in which they live. It's available as an audiobook too. I've listened to the part of the audiobook, and it's pretty solid. I recommend that because it's very easy to sort of access, I think, out of all of them. So I think that's the one people can usually get their hands on. For stuff that's a little bit more medium, I say medium because I'm really not sure how available these are. Like in print, I was able to find these authors really easily at my library, but wasn't, I don't know how well it is everywhere else, but yeah. And also I'm biased because most of my research focuses on Richard the Lionheart related stuff. So Jean Fleury and John Gillingham are both Richard scholars, and they write a lot about Angevin Empire stuff. But they both have Richard biographies, and they get cited a lot, and they kind of snark at each other and have some minor disagreements. But overall, I think together they give a very good overview. I'm not as knowledgeable about stuff specifically about John, but if you're interested in Henry the Young King, you can't go any better than Matthew Strickland's Henry the Young King. That one I think is out of print, so you have to find it like on eBay or something, and it was kind of expensive, so I can't. I bought it for myself because it's just a really good book. However, it is available on the Internet Archive. Internet Archive is your friend. Yeah, there are a lot of things right there. There's a lot of other books because they're pretty famous figures. There's lots of books that are available, but some of them are pretty either out of print or have sort of outdated scholarship, and they say a lot of interestingly whack things. But I mean, it's still entertaining if you want to read a bunch of those because it'll kind of give you a sense of what people were thinking at certain times. But otherwise, like for primary sources, I think Gutenberg has some. I was able to find Rigord's writing for the deeds of Philip Augustus on Gutenberg, although I'm not sure whose translation it was. I do know there was also a book on some of the more Philip Augustus stuff, but since I think it's French and not as common in the Anglosphere, it's kind of hard to find. Jean Fleury also has a biography of Philip Augustus that's available on Amazon. I borrowed it. I don't really know French, but then like I can kind of figure out a lot of this stuff with the help of some Google Translate and my previous knowledge of the other things. So I thought it was a pretty good buy. But I think for more like in-depth, there are other scholars you can look at. This is just a basic overview. And of course, I mentioned Devil's Crown. If you speak French, it's available on Madeleine in French. And however, it doesn't have any English subtitles. That's really frustrating. So it's one of those things that just isn't really available officially. So you'd have to kind of know what's going on with that. Yeah, this is basically it. This is just like the start, really. If you want to go into more things, there's always like the Robin Hood stories, which are very associated with the legends of how people perceive Richard and John in the pop culture. And then later the King Arthur and Arthurian mythos is of course got its start in like as we know it in the 12th century with the whole Geoffrey of Monmouth and all that. So like it kind of leads really well. The fictional King Arthur relates a lot to sort of the real life history as well. And in fact, in Henry the Young King, they kind of mention how they talk about prophecies of Merlin, even when talking about the actions of the War Without Love or the Brothers' Rebellion in the 1170s. So it's all very interesting. This is just like my recommendations. I know not everyone's interested, but a lot of people might be. So yeah, I start with Lion Winter because I think it has a wide appeal to everyone, whether or not you're interested in history. But I know sometimes people want to branch out, so that's it.